Hello everyone, this is Louis Almeida again, the leader, teacher, student, coach, and mentor on the philosophy of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. This is teaching number 3 regarding Spinoza. We emphasize the idea of the improvement of our understanding. Last couple of recordings, I want to emphasize it again. The improvement of our understanding is the first part or prior to the 5 parts of the ethics in the Spinoza's ethics. Now when you purchase the book, if you decide to, there is the 5 parts of the ethics, and there is the correspondence and also the improvement. The particular book that I recommend is the Elwes translation and the Dover edition. You can get this book on my website. Just go to resources and scroll down until you come to the book and click on the link. It'll take you directly to Amazon.com. I don't get any credit for this, but I think it's important that you have the correct book if you want to follow me. I'm going to emphasize again the improvement of our understanding. Why is that so important? Unfortunately, we try to read Spinoza from a mind that is rather weak. For you who are highly intellectual, you might find this offensive. The reality is you cannot just pick up the book and read it like a novel. You might complain that Spinoza is too 17th century. We don't think like that anymore. However, there are some words, yes, that are expressed at that time, that era. But today we can actually take his ideas and explore them, and this is where intuition is so important. Intuition coupled with reason will help us, put in the effort to reflect and examine what is Spinoza communicating. And this is why it's so important to have a teacher or someone to help you explain specifically how or what is Spinoza communicating. And I'll give you an example. Again, the book, here I have the book, The Ethics. And I'm going to go to page 10. And we're going to go scroll down to the bottom of the page. And there are 4 points that Spinoza wants to bring out. And I want to concentrate on 2 of them. The first one is to have an exact knowledge of our nature, which we desire to perfect. What does that mean, to have an exact knowledge of our nature? Now, for you, for those of you who want or have a sensitivity that there is more to life, most of my students, and when I was a student, found that life does not give us everything that we are seeking, that we want. It may give us temporary pleasures. We might feel temporary happiness, but it's not lasting. Even in marriage, it does not last. Our girlfriend, how exciting when we first meet. And after a year being together, it gets boring. You'll find most individuals do not know what to say. They're so contrary in their nature. That's why we're attracted to the opposite sex, meaning, or the opposite counterpart, opposite personality. An individual may be highly intellectual and might be feeling isolated, not knowing how to connect. He might be attracted to someone who's very gregarious, very outgoing, very expressive. But yet, when they're over time together, they don't know how to communicate. So those of you who are highly intellectual, Spinoza will be a challenge in a different way. You'll need emotions and intuition to understand Spinoza. For those who are highly emotional, you'll need to learn how to strengthen your mind. And this is the problem I had when I first met my teacher. My teacher had doubt of whether I can continue his work or participate because my mind was very weak. I lived from my emotional center, as Gurdjieff would talk about. I want to emphasize this again. Gurdjieff talks about there are 3 centers in man and in women. The first is, say, intellectual. The second is emotional, and the third is physical. We all have three of them. However, one is dominant. In my case, I was highly emotional, and my intellectual center was very weak. I had to develop my intellectual center, and that has been a progress, and is still continuing. For me to come to Spinoza, to understand Spinoza, I don't know all of Spinoza, but what I do know is rather profound, and it excites me. That's why I can listen to the ethics, which is on digital. I listen to that every day. Why? Because I want to, as Spinoza explains, perfect my understanding. I perfect my nature. And what is perfection? Well, we don't want to be perfect human beings. There's no such thing. What Spinoza is talking about perfection is coming to reality, more reality. For instance, an individual who is in pleasure is a state of more perfection than a person who is in pain. A person who is in pain, it goes into sadness or depression. So an individual who's depressed cannot get out of bed, cannot do anything, is very lethargic. And so being able to function in reality, to function in life is depressed. So an individual who is in pleasure is able to, say, operate and function in existence, in reality. Existence is reality. But I've learned through Spinoza and Gurdjieff, particularly Spinoza, there's a higher level of reality. And that's where the 3 levels of knowledge comes in, and the 4 levels of perception are so important, as we discussed in teachings 1 and 2. So this is teaching number 3, a continuation. And again, I want to emphasize that I'm going to write a series of these. I'm not sure how many, but they're going to be anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes long. And it'll give you an idea how I work, and how you can follow and maybe learn how to use Spinoza to improve your perfection, improve your understanding. So on page 10, Spinoza, I'm going to emphasize number 1, to have an exact knowledge of our nature, which we desire to perfect. Now there's an important word, another word called desire. Spinoza also explains on page 173 that, and this is under the emotions on part 3 of the ethics. Now, if I'm talking too fast, or these ideas are just coming out, bang, 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 and you're overwhelmed, take a pause, stop, and go back. That's the power that you have. You can reflect and listen to this over and over again until it becomes a part of your nature. So, on page, what is desire? Page 10, desire is the essence of man. What does that mean? It means that everything that comprises of a human nature and all living things is desire. From the smallest bird or the insect to the giant, say, elephants. Desire is expressed. And especially human nature. Human nature is much more complex. But everything expresses desire. And the first desire is desire to exist, to persist in our existence. We'll find any way to persist. I think Schopenhauer talked about the power, the power to persist, or the power of, or the force of existence, or the force of desire, something like that. Well, yes, there's a force, but there's no free will in this force, and this is what's confusing to all of us. We're born into the belief of free will, not realizing that we are following laws of nature. And what are these laws? I'm going to repeat. The law of necessity. The law of necessity explains that everything exists necessarily. You didn't create your nature. You were born into your nature. This body, what a wonderful thing we have. When you cut your finger, you don't will yourself to heal. The body has its power to heal itself. We have many systems in our body, function by the brain, and it helps maintain and moderate all the systems. through the spinal cord and the gut. This is all automatic. You don't have to think about it. You're breathing automatically. Here we are, we're talking. What a wonderful thing. And here we're using Skype. And you're listening to this video. Magnificent. But yet, everything follows necessarily. Again, what does that mean? We act. Whatever we do, we act with the knowledge that we learned. If you learned, for instance, to be fearful of another race, say, for instance, you might be afraid of a dark-skinned person. Why? Where did that come from? Children, if you notice children, and they are put into an environment, say kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, daycare, and they're among different races. They don't look at you and say, "Who are you? I don't like you." They love to play. They love to interact. They express their nature. They're not inhibited. They love and they have fun and they laugh instantly. And they cry instantly. But there's no prejudice. Prejudice is learned. Hate is learned. So, desire is the essence of man. It helps preserve. Self-preservation is another law. The law of necessity, the law of self-preservation. Now, the law of cause and effect. You're going to understand these laws over and over again as you hear them, and they'll make sense in time. So, you might have judgments. Where does this judgment come? You might be called as a child stupid over and over again, and you believe it. That's hearsay information. As a boy, I always thought I was very stupid. I was, in comparison with my siblings. My younger brother learned his ABCs before I did. He even got his puberty. He grew hair under his arms before I did. I was so angry. And he's a year and a half younger. How can that be? So I grew up with hate and anger instantly. And when we grow up, we harbor these same feelings. So we learn, if we don't get our way, we instantly get angry. If we don't get approval, we instantly get angry. If our desires are not met, and there we are, desire. If it isn't met, if we don't come to actualize our desires, we feel pain. Okay, let's get back to page 10. Number 4, I'm going to skip the other two, and so if you want to go to page 10, reflect upon them. To compare this result with the nature and the power of man, we want to know what our power is. And what is power? The power in understanding. And this is where Spinoza comes in. He desires to improve our understanding to gain more power. And that's why the improvement is so important. Now, we're going to go to page 13. He says this. He talks about the modes of perception. The fourth mode alone apprehends the adequate essence of a thing without danger of error. This mode, therefore, should we avail ourselves of it. I'll read this again. This mode, therefore, must be the one which we chiefly employ. What is he talking about? And what is the fourth mode of perception? The fourth mode of perception is seeing the nature, the essence, and the ideas of things. Well, what in the world is that? Well, if we take that level of perception and go to page 113, Spinoza calls this the third level of knowledge. I'm going to go there for a moment. The third kind of knowledge we call intuition. This is the highest level of knowledge, according to Spinoza. And however, this level of knowledge is not understood, it's not explained, and very few understand. However, Spinoza is very clear what intuition is. But we're not capable of understanding it. You'll notice yourself reacting. I don't think you might not think this is not important. What's prior to intuition? Reason. Reason is very important. We need reason. Intuition without reason, we become what is called a stupid saint. Meaning that we might have intuitive insights. a better path to go to, but it's possible to follow. We might see how an individual who loves nutrition, who follows nutritionally, that's an intuitive idea that food, Hippocrates talk about food is medicine, or food, make food your medicine and make medicine your food. And this was expressed over 2,000, 3,000 years ago. But yet today, food we call comfort food, high in sugar, high in salt, and high in grease and oil. Part of it is delicious, absolutely delicious, but if you eat too much of it, it's a problem. Heart disease and sugar diabetes is a result. But you can see that we don't have free will. We follow from the law of necessity. If your understanding is weak, that you don't understand that the necessity of food. Food, by necessity, the nutrients of food, your vegetables, natural grains, all natural organic material, non-GMO products, and you might be offended by that. I remember one of my friends who was in a group he was a scientist. He says, science can duplicate nature. If that is true, why is cancer so prevalent? Why are diseases so prevalent? And why most pharmaceutical pills don't work? Why do we have such an opioid epidemic? Why is drugs so prevalent? Why is addiction so prevalent? Because man does not know how to moderate and govern his desires. His desires are taken off. His feelings are taking him here and there. And they're to develop not only intuition, but reason. Reason with intuition, together, powerful. Because intuition gives us an idea that the direction of Spinoza is true. How do I know that? I know. Can I explain it? Piecemeal by piecemeal, little by little. You'll have to learn how to digest it. It's all there. It's all in Spinoza. One of my students had Spinoza on his shelf for 10 years, and I talk about him. And his name is Martin Butler, and he's a successful. He communicates Spinoza and other philosophers. He had a podcast called Corporeal Fantasy. Excellent. And now he has another program he's involved with. You can look him up, Martin Butler. But he had Spinoza on the shelf for 10 years. He couldn't get into it. And he's a highly intelligent man. He could understand parts of Einstein's laws of relativity. When he came to me, he was desperate. Because he was depressed, even though he studied Gurdjieff for over 40 years. He was involved in Gurdjieff groups for 20 years. But when he came to me, he was socially inept, afraid of people. So nothing really changes when you just read and you just follow dogmatically. You must learn how to see yourself, see your nature. And how do you do that? And this is where we're going to go. On page 113, he says this. I'm sorry, we're going to go to page 114. Wait a minute. This is not true. This isn't where I want to go. Let's go back to page 13. No. Where am I? I'm confused. Let's go back to page 10. That's where we were. And now page 14. Yes. He says that whence we may gather that method is nothing else than reflective knowledge, or the idea of an idea. And that there can be no idea of an idea unless an idea exists previously. But the problem that Martin had is he did not understand what an idea is, even though he expressed an idea. So those who are intellectual, what is an idea? An idea is a thought in the mind. An idea is and so that idea could be clear or can be confused. The mind is comprised of ideas. So let's go back to page, what I wanted to go to page 2, page 12. I'm not going to end at this meeting. I'm going to use my mistakes and my errors as a way of learning. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to look foolish. All right. What I want to read is this. So in like manner, the intellect by its native strength makes for itself intellectual instruments, whereby it acquires strength for performing other intellectual operations. Now, we're going to stop here because it's already 20 minutes, and I'm going to continue with another meeting, another recording. We'll call it Spinoza teaching number 4. So let's stop here. But what's important here, and important before we say goodbye, Spinoza talks about, so in like manner the intellect, or the mind, by its native strength, so in the mind there is incorporated in it strength, makes for itself intellectual instruments. What's an intellectual instrument? An intellectual instrument is coming to an idea, a new idea. The mind effort capacity is come to new ideas, new thoughts, whereby it acquires strength, whereby it acquires strength for performing other intellectual operations. What is an operation? An operation means working on problems. So intellectual instruments, a new idea, how to solve problems, your daily problems. So let's end with that, and we'll continue on part 4. See you later.